15th century astronomers claimed they saw activity and lights on the moon's dark side, the far side that is. I'd like to know how they saw that, because we only see the near side, always facing the Earth. 50 years ago, NASA published a catalog of lunar phenomena based on the observations of early astronomers dating back to the 15th century. Even after vetting the reports and qualifying their accuracy with secondary sources, NASA found records of bizarre sightings on the dark side of the moon, including flickering spots, bright flares, and moving lights. What could account for these strange observations? It's debatable who first conceived of the telescope, though it's widely accepted that it was first invented at the start of the 1600s. But that's not so. Ancient Greeks had telescopes. Now, going back to this, and while the first models were rudimentary three-lens spyglasses, the technology quickly progressed over the following decades thanks to the work of Galileo and Kepler. By adding a combination of convex lenses, the two were able to drastically increase the magnification capability of the early telescopes, allowing the observation of the cosmos like never before. It's also evident from his notes that Galileo was able to view Jupiter's moons, meaning he must have had a pretty clear view of our lunar surface. Reading through the NASA archives, notices odd entries in the 1600s beginning with a bright star-like point, quote-unquote, recorded by several New Englanders observing the dark side of the moon. Nearly a century later, Bianchini reports a track of ruddy lights like a beam crossing the middle of the obscure shadowed area, crater in the darkness, while observing the Plato crater and the Monte Alpes mountain range. Another report cited 4 bright spots, peculiar behavior of Terminator. The Terminator is where the dark side of the moon meets the bright side. Peculiar behavior of the Terminator? Nearing the 1800s, Piazzi reports bright spots on dark side seen during 5 different lunations. And in 1821, Gruthiesen says he saw brilliant flashing spots on the dark side. Some explain these strange lights as the product of solar flares or coronal mass ejections, which produce sparks in the shadowy region of the lunar surface. These sparks are said to be as impactful as a meteorite strike, allegedly created by observing flares. But in the records, there appears to be certain areas with recurring illuminations, particularly around the Aristarchus crater. Quote, blinking lights, unquote, on the dark side, in a mingling of all kinds of colors in small spots, and star-like light persist over hundreds of years, even during eclipses. NASA makes brief mention of these dark side observations, saying they appear frequently in early observations, and writing them off as a lack of light gathering power from telescopes of the time. But telescopes became more sophisticated over the centuries, especially during the 19th century, when lenses were increasingly larger and more refined, and by this period, astronomy was far enough advanced that dismissing these observations was primitive would be insulting. And the strange lights observed around Aristarchus are continually observed in various colors, even by NASA's own observations from astronomers at the Goddard Space Flight Center. Explanation for these colored bands of light vary from high albedo, a measure of reflectivity of a surface, to a seepage of radioactive gas. But for those wary of NASA's endless supply of inadequate justifications, these observations add to a growing list of strange phenomena and apparent obfuscation of what may really be there. So, should we continue to believe NASA's explanations? This is sourced by Gaia, and it's on Humans Are Free. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, You will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.